It is a point of pride for President Trump that he calls things as he sees them the moment he feels the need to weigh in. Just seconds ago, when our White House correspondent Jim Acosta asked the president when he was going to hold the press conference he had promised, the president said this.
Thank you, everybody.
It's how he rolls. Indeed, a reel of the president's public statements and Twitter archive are a veritable goldmine of attacks against those whose behavior of which he disapproves. Let's go to the videotape. From the many tweets expressing disapproval of how actress Kristen Stewart broke up with actor Robert Pattinson, to rant after rant against Rosie O'Donnell, from suggesting John McCain and other POWs aren't heroes because they got captured, to mocking a disabled reporter.
I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
From attacking a former Miss Universe to a Gold Star family.
We truly thank you for joining us.
From the cast of Hamilton to judges, including the ethnicity of one specific judge.
He's a Mexican.
He's not from Mexico.
In my opinion.
He's from Indiana. From chastising his own attorney general to the Senate Majority Leader.
But I said, Mitch, get to work.
There is seemingly no one who is immune to the president's ire. A new TV ad calls those of us who cover him his enemies.
The president's enemies don't want him to succeed.
There are two exceptions, of course, Vladimir Putin and, it would seem, white supremacists. The president seems to struggle when called upon to specifically and unequivocally criticize those groups. Today, 2 days after that horrific hate-filled rally by Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, white supremacists, and the alt-right resulted in the death of counter-protester Heather Heyer, allegedly killed by one of these racists who plowed his car into a crowd, as well as 2 Virginia State troopers, Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and trooper pilot Burke M.M. Bates, whose helicopter crashed as they patrolled near the protests. Finally, 2 days later, President Trump condemned some of these miscreants by name.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans.
Now, the president had to attempt this do-over of a condemnation because the first time he spoke on this issue, on Saturday, he embraced the notion that both the Nazis and those protesting the Nazis were equally at fault.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Now, the moral equivalence and refusal to single out this particular vile crowd of bigots spewing hatred by name was received warmly on the websites of these hate groups. No condemnation at all, wrote one person on a neo-Nazi site. Really, really good. But it was all too much for Republican officials who took to Twitter and the airwaves to essentially beg President Trump to do the right thing.
Call this white supremacism, this white nationalism evil, and let the country hear it, let the world hear it. It's something that needs to come from the Oval Office, and this White House needs to do it today.
It took another day, and this afternoon the president did it, but we are all left to wonder, why did it take so long? This morning the president was on Twitter attacking in full force, as is his wont, among his targets, the CEO of pharmaceutical company Merck, Ken Frazier. What was his offense? He stepped down from the president's manufacturing council, saying, quote, America's leaders must honor our fundamental values by clearly rejecting expressions of hatred, bigotry, and group supremacy. The president, of course, found time to respond to that even before 9 a.m. Now that Ken Frazier of Merck Pharma has resigned from president's manufacturing council, he will have more time to lower rip-off drug prices. Is it easier for President Trump to criticize Ken Frazier than it is for him to criticize the Klan? Is it easier for him to attack U.S. intelligence agencies? After a story he didn't like leaked earlier this year, the president tweeted, quote, intelligence agencies should never have allowed this fake news to leak into the public. One last shot at me. Are we living in Nazi Germany? The president asked. Why, for the president, does it seem easier to suggest U.S. intelligence operatives are behaving like Nazis than to call these actual Nazis Nazis?